Welcome to this episode of Lead the Machine podcast, where today's leaders and tomorrow's talk about the human side of AI at work. We're here in Nashville at the Emerging Leaders Conference, and I'm just really pleased to have my friend and colleague, Jeff Rieder, who is now a partner and head of benchmarking at Aon. His startup, the Ward Group, was acquired by Aon many years ago, but was one of the original technology companies that figured out how to provide benchmarking services to the insurance industry. And we've always had a close relationship between our different startups, you with Ward Group, me with Valent Analytics, and several of us who were providing services to the insurance industry and how to help move the industry forward, if you say so. We've been at this for a bit.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been going on 1998, so 28 years, I guess, since I started there at Ward.
And you're a lifer in insurance.
I am, yeah. I started at 18, so right out of high school.
So you've seen quite a bit in your days in the industry. We can just jump into the bird's eye view you've had by bringing in a bunch of data about insurance companies and benchmarking them. As you've seen different technology transformations in this industry, how do you see the industry sort of take on and figure out how to absorb and embed new technologies?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I was fortunate just to be starting at a kind of young age that I saw not only how companies, initially when I was at Great American in 1993, I remember we were using Lotus 123, so I was telling somebody in the office, I'm older than the mouse. We didn't even have the mouse yet, right? And so I always joke around because I use all the keyboard shortcuts instead of the mouse to do everything in Excel. There's always been a lot of hype around new technologies. Mm-hmm. If we think about in the early 90s, everybody thought that things were going to just change drastically. So we had predictive, or I'd say first it kind of started with the internet, right? Mm-hmm. When that became widely adopted in the mid 90s. That started to change the way that companies were marketing themselves and attracting new customers. But then we had the emergence of predictive analytics, mm-hmm. first in personal lines. That had a great ability to synthesize a lot of information, made companies smarter about how they were pricing products, how they were approaching marketing, things like that.
It was really personal auto companies that pioneered.
Exactly.
And they often are the ones that pioneer new technologies first, personal auto.
Yeah. That's a good point because part of that is there's so many more customer interactions that mm-hmm. occur. So, and it will lead into a lot of other areas, but when there are many customer interactions or a lot of task-oriented mm-hmm. processes, that's where automation and technology has the greatest impact. But it really hasn't changed. If we kind of continue on, you had the agency interface mm-hmm. Where data was automated there. Then we had, if you think about like Google and Amazon and the emergence of those platforms.
Online quoting.
Quoting, everything. Everybody thought though that Google and Amazon were going to take over the insurance world, which didn't really happen. But then, then the insurtech boom mm-hmm. in the mid-2010s. Yeah. And it really hasn't necessarily changed the way that companies need to do all of the core activities around claims, underwriting, acquiring customers, and all the processes that go with that. I mean, we have definitely seen a shift in terms of the operating model. Mm-hmm.
And what kind of shifts?
The biggest are, and it's interesting, so as you would expect, say from 2000 until 2020, really, a big shift in terms of technology roles. And those were, first it's application developers and maintenance of the core systems, but that means that bleeds into QA and testing type roles, mm-hmm. project manager, business analysts, scrum masters. So there was this major shift in all these technology-centric roles that the back end of that was a reduction in clerical roles for policy processing, data entry activities, right? Because there's no need to enter data, it's pre-fed into the systems. Then it's things like claims first notice of loss and the claims clerical support roles. Then it also bleeds into call center activities, right? So we've seen a sharp reduction in those types of roles. Mm. It's been interesting to see that evolution, but we've also seen an increase in roles for enterprise risk management. because now we're thinking about how the enterprise needs to manage these new data risks, whether it's information security, things like that. We've also seen a growth in kind of the corporate compliance roles and general counsel type activities. So a lot of the things around monitoring it, but surprisingly, or perhaps maybe not surprisingly, over the last, say 5 years with the expansion of the commercial lines market, E&S, the MGA space, we've seen a major growth in like roles around commercial product development. Commercial underwriting roles are very hot in demand and continue to grow. So there's been that shift in those types of roles. Interesting enough, though, I think we'll see a backward shift to those IT roles, because as we have a team within Aon that actually just focuses on AI and the impact that it has on job roles. And they recently did an exercise to look at 12 major job families within insurance companies. And the number one role that has the greatest displacement for AI is information technology.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So, we're AI because it's really interesting. They take a process where they look around kind of three major kind of guiding principles. What will AI, will it displace a job? Will it augment the job, or will it streamline it? Augment meaning just providing additional data. Obviously streamline, making it more fast, and then displacement means eliminate the role completely.
Yeah, right.
And then within that, there's essentially like 12 tasks, whether, I won't go into all of them, but digital intake, image analysis, kind of all the different roles. And within technology, the technology job family, that was the number one function within insurance companies that will have the greatest displacement.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and then other roles, perhaps not surprisingly, finance was high on that list as well. And then marketing and distribution management were also the kind of top 4 areas. The areas that don't get as displaced are those that require more of that human element, the emotional aspect, which is all, everything in claims, right?
Sure.
And even within underwriting, right? Because there's a lot of negotiation that needs to go back and forth, particularly on commercial risks.
Not going to do that with your chatbot.
You're not, yeah. So I'm very interested, excited to see how the evolution will take over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think it will take about 5 years for companies to fully embrace and understand how AI can do those things, whether it's displace, augment, or streamline the activity.
And as you've looked at benchmarking over just your couple of years in insurance and at other technology transformations, what do you see in terms of a company's performance if they tend to be in a different category? Like there's some early adopters of technology, then there's the group right behind them, the fast followers, then you have some who are like, I'm gonna just sit on the sidelines and wait this out. What do you see in terms of their culture and their appetite for technology transformation? How does it quantify to the bottom line?
Yeah, it's been fascinating to see on each of those arcs. I would say the ones that are the first
early adopters.
Early adopters, they tend to have an extraordinarily high expense structure, particularly for their technology costs, right?
Because they invest a lot.
Because they invest a lot up front, right?
Yeah.
And the early adopters, in many cases, will follow that same footprint. Surprisingly, over the long time, sometimes those last followers, if you will, I'd say not the ones that are the very last, we'll say they're the back end of the fast followers. They tend to, I'd say, be more prudent in terms of how they approach it. The key thing is the organizational readiness as much as anything. So if a company is not ready to embrace the technology, change their processes, a lot of cases, just historically you'd seen that companies had operated on 3 or 4 platforms for multiple years, right? So they're maintaining this legacy footprint.
They've acquired other companies, brought on a new system.
So a lot of times it's more around the simplicity and the organizational structure that impacts the technology costs that they have as well.
What do you think the readiness elements are from a culture perspective?
In some cases, it's evaluating more the people on the front line, right? And the leadership's actually, I'd say, more dictating that this is the way we're going to do it. versus those companies that try to seek too much input from every interesting stakeholder in there, right? In some cases, we'll say the mandate from the top, if it's very strong, saying this isn't an option one way or another. We know that some customers, maybe some agents, might not be happy with this new platform, but we need to do what's best for the business and make that decision up front. So I think it's more being very direct and deliberate, not involving too many people. So those companies that have, they'll put an army of underwriters or whatever it is, right? And sometimes having too many people involved in the process can kind of delay the impact, I'd say.
And it's probably that executive sponsorship and also alignment on that executive team, so that they're all singing by the same songbook, if you will, instead of different messages, and then nobody knows what to do.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. I would say from my experience, like the companies that have that leadership communication culture, those are the ones that excel the best. And it was funny because Dana Perino, who was just speaking, was talking about problems start with a breakdown in communication. That was one of our opening themes. And those companies that have forced interaction with the executive leadership, whether it's a mandated Monday meeting where they all get together for 2 hours in that same room. I have another company I work with where the leaders, they all get together for lunch every day, right? And it creates that deliberate culture of communication where people are on the same wavelength, I guess, all the time.
So then as it's time to roll it out, maybe we could talk a little bit about augmentation, right? Where with predictive analytics, certainly we've both seen it, getting the front lines to adopt it, not see it as a sort of threat to their job. So let's say you've got a great mandate and executive alignment. Now it's time to really roll it out and find your champions within the teams and people that want to try it and use it. What do you see in terms of best practices around rolling it out with an organization and bringing those people in to get their buy-in?
Yeah, I think that is probably the biggest challenge for companies. Though I don't know if there's a magic bullet per se for how companies can do it. I think it's just having the process documentation put out, having the pieces put in place where they're truly mandating, this is how we're going to work through the process, and don't allow the exceptions to the process to break down the entire chain of command, if you will.
You have to think it through. I think one of the important things is sharing how we're going to measure whatever it is we're changing.
Yeah.
And so that everyone knows what the North Star is there. That doesn't always get into the design of our rollout.
Yeah, and it's funny because everybody comes in with these great expectations that post-implementation, we're going to be able to do things faster with fewer people, fewer resources. And that's how the business case is put in candidly for a lot of the technology implementation. Most companies vastly underestimate the resources and the amount of time it will take to accomplish that. Which is probably human nature to go into it thinking that we're going to be able to do it faster.
And your board, when you go in and say it's going to take us 6 months, and the board's like, how about 3?
Yeah. I remember I was at a conference, this is back in 2008 or 9, and it was a group of chief information officers, and I made a comment that companies go in, they say, at the time we'd say for a core system replacement, we expected most companies that would take between 6 and 7 years to get that completed. And I joked around that all these business cases are built on 3 years. And then literally all one by one, a bunch of them said, yeah, we're in the 5th year of our 3-year project. Another gentleman jumped up and said, yeah, we're in the 9th year of our 3-year. And somebody said, we're in the 11th year of our 3-year project. So I do think, though, the time frame, that was kind of 2000s and even 2010s when companies were putting in, this is where I think AI will have a bigger impact. Because a lot of the coding, a lot of the work that goes involved in the past, AI will definitely support that. So I do think that these long horizons of systems, I think that is going to be cut down significantly.
That is an end of an era. I think the SaaS business is in for pretty big disruption if they don't figure out how to incorporate AI and stop these 10-year, decades-long.
Yeah.
They're just too expensive, and business can't move fast enough. It's not nimble enough. It just shuts down everything. It's so difficult to go through those lengthy things.
Yeah.
So I do agree. Like AI can be a real help there.
Yeah.
And so now then it's incumbent not just on the insurance companies but their software providers to step up, right,
Yeah.
and really leverage that. But on the people side, maybe talk a little bit, because I think you talk with a lot of HR professionals, how, outside of recruiting, which is a whole different topic, but just in terms of talent development and helping people just incorporate, because AI, it can be a little like daunting. They're like, it can emulate me, but it's never really going to replace people entirely. How are HR departments using AI to coach, to do talent development? Like, how are they leveraging it on that side?
Yeah, a lot of it is the job architecture is going to change for many roles. Our AI experts in this, they'd say that the job necessarily doesn't get eliminated. In most cases it doesn't, but it becomes bigger. And this is where the challenge comes in, because there's going to be certain job roles that now, because you have AI, it does eliminate that frontline individual.
Tasks, yeah.
And so that person needs to understand a bigger job role in many cases. There was actually a great example that they illustrated of within QA and testing. There are 3 different job families within QA and testing, and now with AI they collapse into 2 job families, right? Because now there's not the segmentation of the roles that there had been in past. And I think that's what we'll find in many cases, is that job roles are just going to be bigger because AI is going to be in that augmentation role versus streamlining or displacing it. So I think it's critical that companies need to walk through that process to understand, talk through like the different 12 tasks and how that impacts each individual job role. It needs to have a thoughtful approach about how that's going to impact all those different job roles, and then what are the skills needed in that new job role, and then training the staff to be able to say, okay, we're expecting this out of you now, and going through that. It's usually a 6 or 9 month process to train and get them upskilled.
As you're saying that, it's just sort of occurring to me, like, that means employees who might have thought of themselves as individual contributors are actually more in leadership roles regardless of their title, because leaders take on broadened scope, right? As we go up the leadership ranks, our scope of what we have to focus on becomes a lot broader. But now that seems to be getting maybe pushed down into more individual contributor roles, because as menial tasks, redundant tasks can be done by AI. Now they're having to broaden their scope, which is moving into a leadership role, even maybe in an individual contributor job.
Yeah, you're right. It might not look like that on paper per se. Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up too, because and we've seen one of the other big impacts with automation just in general, and fewer people doing those clerical tasks or frontline customer-facing tasks that are now automated with chatbots or what have you. The span of control in terms of a leader, number of staff per manager, has dropped significantly over the last 20 years. So in the 90s, we would have said that an ideal span of control for an organization was 8 to 1.
Okay.
Now when you go into most companies, many don't even have a 5 to 1 span of control.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
they have less than 5 direct reports.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you go to like a specialty organization and the E&S writers, those MGA type organizations, it's often that we'll see it at like a 3 or 3.5 to 1. And
you think that'll continue?
I do, because there's just not going to be the
because you're doing so much more.
Yeah.
With fewer people.
But it raises another issue, is that because you don't have those tasks that people cut their teeth on, it's going to be a bigger challenge for organizations to do that rudimentary skill development that we all benefited from.
We did.
Right? On my Lotus 1, 2, 3, I know the shortcuts. But so those menial, I don't say menial, but those entry-level tasks that
you learned a lot by doing.
Exactly.
The grunt work. We paid our dues, as we like to say, but we learned a lot, right? In doing that and in doing that work. So how do you think people just trying to learn the industry, the job, coming out of the workforce, how do they skill up like this?
Yeah, well,
it's
events
harder.
Like this, though,
Yeah.
I think companies need to be thoughtful in terms of developing people, whether it's at getting them to interact with other people in the insurance community just in general. But yeah, there does need to be more of a thoughtful training and communication around that as well.
I think while we have a lot of remote work and hybrid work, there is no substitute for being in person.
Yeah.
Whether it's at a conference or going into an office, I mean, there's just no substitute. So we need to like maybe manufacture more of those opportunities if people are working from home,
Yeah.
right? And get them in and help them and understand that we benefited from a lot of things that we're not necessarily providing to young people coming in, and they needed just as much as we did.
Yeah, yeah.
Although we probably thought we knew it all
Yeah.
back in the day.
Maybe.
We now know that we know less now than we thought we did then. So you also track trends in the industry as you're so good at the benchmarking. In terms of where you think AI will have the biggest impact, we talked a little bit about distribution. So what are your thoughts on where you think that will like really come into play nearer term?
Yeah, I think that for the independent agent or the broker, they need to be very intentional in terms of how they're servicing their customers, because as people get more comfortable with relying on an AI agent, that has a real opportunity to displace the distribution channel, where that'll allow companies, whether they're operating through an MGA and doing that through a fully AI platform, or even companies that want to build that AI agent to take direct business, that does have an opportunity of potentially displacing the independent agent or broker. So I think that going forward, that could be really, from my view, a very interesting dynamic that'll probably evolve. And I think that'll happen more quickly than people expect. I see this as being one of those that's going to have a bigger impact over the next 5 years.
Change is slow until it's not.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Of course, I say that, but we also thought that Google and
Right.
these tech companies were going to come into the insurance industry, right? But they didn't. Not in the way that they thought they would.
No,
but,
the big splash of Google Compare, which is going to do all this online quoting, I think they lasted 2 years and shut it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could be wrong. I don't know if it'll eliminate, right? But I think it's going to be the need for somebody to go to their agent and ask that question that they now can ask ChatGPT or whatever platform is out there. It can.
Well, it's like a continuation of the internet where it changed the buyer behavior, where buyers do 60% of their research before talking to a provider. This is only just continuing that trend. And someone said, I thought it was really smart, we tend to overestimate the short term, but underestimate the long-term change.
Yeah.
And that's the conundrum of predicting this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like it will have a big impact. At exactly what time and exactly in what way is why we all get up every day and see what happens.
I might steal that line.
Okay. Free of charge, free of charge. Well, thank you so much for this conversation and for spending the time and just being great colleagues over the years as we do our work to help this industry move forward and keep on its toes and keep introducing all the new technologies that make it serve its customers, and it's been a great time. So thank you. I am honored to be joined by my colleague and friend, Stefan Holzberger, who is the Executive Vice President and Chief Operations Officer at AM Best. He and I have shared the stage a time or two. So it's really nice to have you on. Welcome. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah. In our special edition here live in Nashville at the Emerging Leaders Conference, and we'll get to that in a moment. But we are here to talk about AI and how this is really rolling out and in different industries. And, you know, in my experience, it's tech is one thing, but when you try and involve people in operations and scale it, this is where things can get really messy really fast. But it's also exciting. It's exciting times. So it is still very early days in terms of AI becoming this ubiquitous technology with insurance companies. And, you know, curious, please explain for the audience, because not everyone's an insurance expert, what AM Best does when you start to answer this. But I'm really curious about what you're seeing in terms of how companies, because you have this big, large bird's eye view, you know, how companies are starting to really think about using AI? Where do you see early pilots, use cases? How do you see companies in insurance starting to think about and using AI, and why AM Best has such a bird's eye view?
So yeah, again, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And there's evolution going on here, and it's exciting to be part of it and be witnessing it. A little bit about AM Best. We're a single sector credit rating agency, and what we mean by that is we focus exclusively on insurance, right? We are insurance people through and through. We have clients in over 100 countries around the world, and our primary products are financial strength ratings, bond ratings for insurance companies who issue debt to fund their operations. But in addition to that, we have a products and services sister company, so we're constantly publishing information about the trends and the opportunities and the challenges across the insurance industry.
And what does it mean to get a financial strength rating for an insurance company? What does it mean, and why is it so important?
Okay, yeah, so that's a good question. So the world of credit ratings is really kind of a relative ranking in the case of a financial strength rating around the credit worthiness of an insurance organization.
Like a bank. Yeah.
Like a bank, exactly. Like if you were rating a bank, you would like to know that they've got a strong balance sheet, and that, you know, if they're holding your money, or if they're a counterparty to other business ventures that you're involved in, that they're on good financial standing, and that when you need them, they're going to be there. And what's more important than that promise to pay from an insurance organization, right? Conversely, with banks, oftentimes they're lending you money.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you have their money. With insurance organizations, you're paying premiums week by week, month by month, year by year. And some of those promises to pay are very long dated. Think of a life policy or a casualty policy where you may be paying in for that insurance protection, but it could be years and years before the insurance company actually pays your claim in full.
Yeah.
And so what our work does is we basically say, if you got a high rating from AM Best, you're a financially sound organization, you're an organization that an individual, a business, a government should be comfortable doing business with, because they're going to be around to pay your claim.
So it's really important that when you're looking at these organizations, that they're stable, they're not going too high risk in terms of new innovation, back to this question, but that also they're not falling behind and not adopting technology that is going to keep them, you know, solvent and current and modern and moving forward. So you're really kind of looking at that balance. And so how are you seeing them, you know, tackle this whole, what do we do with AI?
With AI, well, even to take a step back, as you know, we've formally introduced an evaluation of the innovativeness of insurance organizations. Oh my gosh, that's at least 5, 6, 7 years now. It was before COVID where, you know, we started to see InsurTech rising. You know, that took a pretty significant step back, you know, during COVID, and some investment crises and banking crises slowed that pace of growth down. But, you know, with 100%, these technologies are only going to become more and more prominent in the world of insurance. So, you know, what we see at AM Best in terms of our rated clients, I think we've polled the insurance community, we've surveyed, and the insurance companies admittedly recognize they're not the most cutting edge organizations in industry, right?
Nobody's going to claim that.
Nobody with a straight face is going to claim that, right? And so they know that, you know, this is a heavily regulated industry. These organizations have been insuring and reinsuring hard assets, people for decades and decades. And so change is something that they take very cautiously and you could say slowly. But at the same time, like you're saying, and what we're saying with our criteria on innovation is, if insurance organizations don't embrace technology, find ways to make their businesses more efficient, work on, you know, leveraging technology to lower the loss ratio over time, improve risk selection,
modernize the customer experience.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's another aspect of the insurance industry that needs some modernization, right? The experience should be less painful. You know, when you're trying to find out, when you're shopping for insurance, when you've got a claim, when you're trying to understand your policy, you know, improving the communication around that is hugely important.
Yeah. So what are they doing with AI, and what are you seeing as kind of what's happening early days here?
Yeah, so 100% it's early days. There's a lot of kind of playing around with the technology, a lot of exploring where are the use cases. I think where we're seeing most adoption at this point is in the back office around repetitive tasks and improving efficiencies, reducing errors. That seems to be gaining the most traction at this point. There's some utilization of AI in claims. You know, claims is an area where you have massive amounts of information, right? If you're a long-standing insurance company, you've got decades and decades of claim information. If you can digitize that and then use AI to mine that information, you might have better tools at identifying fraud. You might have better tools to identify what might be a litigious claim versus one that may not. You might mean that the way that that claim is tackled is adjusted a little bit based on that information. Some imagery recognition we're certainly seeing on the auto side. So some applications on the claims front, certainly back office. I think insurance companies are very hesitant to really go both feet in with regard to underwriting. They're afraid of unintended bias and discrimination and things like that. They're afraid of a misstep with their regulator that could be costly.
And that's what the regulators are really looking for. They want, you know, protections for the consumer, for the small business or whatever business that they're insuring. And so regulators are also going to be very, you know, much scrutinizing the use in underwriting. I know from our days at Valid Analytics, you know, our predictive models were in underwriting, and that was always, the regulators watched us very closely to say, you know, is what you're putting out there in terms of your algorithms introducing any potential bias or whatnot. We would use models that were very stable in that the answer wouldn't change, but in the world of AI, the answer changes based on what is learned. And so it's a whole new set of dynamics for them to kind of do it in underwriting. But in claims, I think if you're an insurance customer, the other cool thing about using AI in claims is which claims to just settle really quickly, because it can kind of crunch to the information and say, just let this one go. And that's good for the insurance consumer.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. They get their check right away. They can move on. They can get the repairs done, and it's a pleasant experience with your insurance partner rather than a painful one.
The more that insurance can leverage data into insight actually helps the insurance customer in that they can get faster service on claims. They can also get, if they're low risk, better pricing. You know, so it does help. It's not necessarily a big brother thing. It's more, the more that they know about what they insure, the more that they can actually be responsive to the customer. And to your point, even if a claim is marked as potential litigation, maybe putting humans in the mix together earlier and flagging that helps all sides resolve it without it having to go there. That helps everybody.
It certainly does, and I know keep the lawyers out. The strategy generally is to close the claim as fast as possible, but there may be some where you want to bring in the human element. You want to have that conversation and make the policyholder feel like they're being made whole, that it's not just a negotiation down to the lowest dollar that they'd accept.
So, given the weight then of an AM Best financial strength rating, you also have to be really judicious about the use of technology. So it is early days in AI. How's AM Best thinking about using it?
Yeah, same course for us. So we don't dare talk to the industry about how important it is for them to be innovative and for us to just rely on our old methods. So we are moving a lot of our platforms and tools to the cloud. We've been pretty much a paperless environment for a long time. With regard to AI, there are a lot of us that are playing around with it to see where it can fit into our work routine. You know, can it do an amount of research that might take me a week in a few hours? Can it take something that I'm trying to craft in terms of what I'm seeing in the market perhaps feed it some reports, some of ours, some other industry reports, and have it give me some intelligence. We are using AI. So we collect insurance company financial statements from tens of thousands of companies all over the world using every imaginable accounting practice and local country accounting practice. We're using AI so that we don't need people literally kind of coding that into our databases. So for certain countries, certain accounting standards, AI can just in the snap of the fingers bring that into our databases. And those financials feed not only our analytical tools that we use to rate the companies, but it's also a product for the data users of AM Best products.
Yeah.
So that's one area. We're also using AI for translations. We have a lot of Spanish-speaking clients. So Latin America is a growing market for us. We want to be able to give the local population information in their native language. So that had been trialed, tested, rolled out just really a couple of months ago, and there's still a human native Spanish-speaking analyst checking it at press releases and things like that before they go out, but we're finding really impressive accuracy, and now we're looking at what other languages we can roll that out in.
That's pretty interesting. And so as you find some of those efficiencies, are you finding that your team members can take on other work that previously, they didn't have time for, that is more strategically valuable and closer to your customer?
So that's the age-old formula that we're all hoping. I'm not sure we're able to quantify that yet, but I would suspect that over time it has to be the reality, right? Our team of analysts in our Mexico City office that cover Latin America, they spend a lot of time translating documents. And so, yeah, could they spend more time, handle a larger portfolio of accounts, be out in the markets doing presentations or creating other research rather than doing these translations? It has to be a benefit.
Yeah, and we'll find
out how we can use it.
In the spirit of getting closer to the customer, your customers are also insuring all of these businesses that are incorporating AI. So that then changes the nature of the risk that they're insuring. And it's happening so fast. Like when the internet, came to be, what does it mean to be a .com business or to be a traditional kind of business that then uses it? It changes the nature of the risk. Every technology introduces unintended sort of fallout, consequences, whatever, momentum. So how are you guys looking at it at AM Best in terms of how AI is changing the very nature of the risks that the industry is insuring?
Yeah, so the pace of change in the macroeconomy is just, it's staggering how fast things are changing. The interconnectedness of businesses, the amount of intellectual property that's now on the balance sheets of organizations, of companies all over the world, where it used to be brick and mortar, it used to be factories, it used to be hard assets. Now IP is the key asset driving the value of all of these companies. What does that mean for insuring and protecting these companies from the insurance company standpoint? I mean, cyber is getting a massive amount of attention. AI is making cyber criminals more sophisticated. It's making them move more efficiently and more effectively. And so that's a risk to insurance companies as well as every company in every industry. But it's also an opportunity for the insurance companies, right? Cyber premiums continue to grow. We have had some major cyber events. We rate dedicated cyber insurance companies as well as the large multinational cyber insurers that are out there. And the performance tends to be quite cyclical with competition. And we joke a little bit that the insurance industry doesn't like to make too many profits for too long because inevitably the competition comes in and pushes those prices down and the profits go along with it. So that's why we're seeing some good innovation, even in terms of the risk transfer and the insurance products companies are providing.
So as you kind of think about, like you said, cyber data is now a huge asset for every company. Data governance, all of that. I have to assume that that's a big part of what insurers are looking at in terms of businesses is besides consumer privacy rights, data is now a big asset if you're leveraging AI. What is your data governance? All of that has to go into the assessment of risk.
It does, and the quality of that data is hugely important. One of the things I was going to mention around that evolution for the use cases for AI is a lot of our clients, there's some that are ahead of the curve, they've got a hugely innovative culture, but most of them are frankly struggling with legacy systems, the quality, the amount of their data, and to the extent that their systems communicate with their other systems.
They've grown by, mergers and acquisitions. They've acquired everybody has a different system. And it is not simple.
Right.
To merge those systems.
Yeah, you've seen it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Close and personal.
It can get very expensive, and they don't always do it right. Sometimes some of these big investments don't wind up, unfortunately, with the solution that they were hoping for. So they have to go back to the drawing board.
I do think AI offers new solutions for fixing some of those data problems. For instance, just to make it very practical, you bring two companies together. You have two different data sets. Guess what? You label things different. Just the labeling of a field and trying to merge it together when they're not, and they're never identical because everyone just does it, however they did it.
Yep.
But AI does offer solutions, helping bring that together.
Yep.
It also introduces new risks, like what did it make up and how do you govern it and how do you have the oversight, just like you have a native speaker still looking at a press release before it goes out. Right. But if you're looking at the size of databases that, companies are managing, it's helpful and it's also, a beast.
It is.
It is. So that has to be part of it, IP and just data across every industry where maybe in construction data wasn't a thing that you thought about, but now you have to, as an insurer.
Absolutely. And these data centers that are supporting the AI platforms, tens of billions of dollars across the leading companies that are, it's a little bit like an arms race to have the best systems out there, and then the amount of investment that's going into that is staggering, which is also an opportunity for insurance solutions, right? There are companies out there, brokers, some specialist companies that have the underwriting capability to insure these data centers. It's expected to be a little bit like cyber, a rapidly growing class of insurance business for the market, if the capacity is there and the expertise.
And if those data centers can capture enough energy to actually work. That's the next.
Right. That's right.
Rick, that's a risk to those.
Yep. Yeah. The amount of water they need to cool the systems. Some of them are trying to employ green technology, use renewable energy. I'm not sure to what level of effectiveness, but at least they're trying. That's the other thing, kind of competing for that energy, for the water source with local communities. You could envision some frictions there.
Absolutely, right? So all of that, I think, just goes to say, when you think about the insurance industry and you think about technology, and yes, it is a legacy industry that's slower to change, but it is also trying to keep up with ensuring how faster moving industries with this technology have new risks. Yeah. And all kinds of things that you didn't think about in industries that were never had these considerations before. So anyway, it makes it an interesting business, right?
Absolutely, and very challenging to make sure the policy terms capture the risk. Yeah.
Well, all of this involves great people and great talent. So, there's tons of talk about how AI will transform people's jobs and traditional org structures. And, we're here at the Emerging Leaders Conference. And obviously, that's in its 8th year, and it's the 11th year of the insurance careers movement. Mm-hmm. And AM Best has been there from the very beginning, supporting this initiative and really helping, in my mind, what you guys have helped do is raise the level of how important talent is and talent development to a company's success, which we've greatly appreciated. Maybe you can talk a little bit about why AM Best decided to jump in without both feet and kind of this initiative and this conference, and why you see talent as such an important strategic initiative for the industry.
Yeah, it is something that resonates with AM Best, all through the leadership team and all through the company. We're a privately held company, and our shareholders, our owners, feel like the insurance industry plays such a pivotal role in every healthy economy. And based on the complexities that we just talked about, the rapidly changing business environment, having a good quality insurers and adequate insurance protection is only going to become more and more important over time. So if you take the important role the industry plays, you want talented young people to come into the industry, learn the business, become future leaders, right? One of the things that we think about a lot at AM Best is succession planning. We're very proud of our culture. We're very proud of the customer service we provide and the insurance expertise that our people have. And so insurance, financial services overall, but especially insurance, it is a people business. I truly believe that in my generation and in the next at least couple generations, it's going to be good, smart people leveraging the technology to do their job better, smarter, faster. And so we have a trainee program where we bring in what we call the Associate Development Program. It's a 1.5 to 2.5 year program, a number of 6-month rotations where college grads are learning the insurance business, they're learning the credit rating agency business, and they're getting the skill set to be moving up the ranks over time and eventually becoming leaders. So we think it's a noble cause, it's a worthy cause. We're happy to be, we're really proud to be a part of it, because we also think there's so many fantastic jobs in the insurance industry. We all recognize that, but you have to get in the industry to recognize what a great place it is to work.
Most of us fell into it, and we want more people to choose it. So,
Exactly.
So last question, trick question for you. If you were an emerging leader today, because, we're kind of we're emerged.
Fully, I think, yeah.
If you were an emerging leader inside of an insurance organization today, how would you be advising yourself to sort of lean into this change and to help your executives succeed, knowing that you're aspiring to be one of them someday?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's so what's the recipe for success? And I always say, make your boss look good. Do your work to the point where you're not relying on somebody else to fix your mistakes, whether it's your boss, your team, somebody else reviewing your work. When you hand something over to a colleague, to your boss, make sure it's the best work product you could possibly do. Become a specialist wherever you are in your career. Focus on continuous learning and education. I think specialization just increases your value to the organization, and showing the initiative to learn and grow is really what we're all looking for those people. So and then the other, but also think about where you want to be in 3 to 5 years, and what do you need to do to get there. You need to be your own advocate at the same time. What skill sets do I need for that next role, whether it's in my current organization or somewhere else? Where do I want to be, and how do I get there?
And don't be afraid to ask your current boss, because that's what they're looking for from their team.
Exactly. It's true.
I know people get a little trepidation, like, should I ask? Yes.
Absolutely.
Because guess
Shows
what?
that they're interested.
Executives are like, please help me. I have so many problems. Like, I'm just looking for the people that want to step up and say, I don't know this yet, but what if I did know this? Would this be valuable or whatnot?
Absolutely.
This has been a really engaging, wonderful conversation, as always, Stefan. Thank you for your support of the Emerging Leaders Conference, the Insurance Careers Movement, and for AM Best kind of showing the leadership that I think is so well, recognized in the industry. So,
well, thanks, Kirsten. Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Lead the